You know, I never really was going to do another WrestleMania review because I don't want to be one of those guys that will do the countdown to WrestleMania, just like the After Up show or Renegades of Wrestling. I want I wanted to leave that to them, but there are some WrestleManias that that I think are the best by far, and I want to do a review of WrestleMania 18 being, and not because it was shot at the Sky Dome in Toronto, but it was the second most greatest WrestleMania because, in my opinion, when WrestleMania 1 through 1 through 16 always seemed to be made in a smaller arena. Okay, maybe not WrestleMania 3 or. Okay, that's a bad example. So there's WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5, WrestleMania 6. Okay, fine. So not all WrestleManias were in a smaller venue. However, I guess I didn't start watching the pay-per-views until um, 17 because that's when I started thinking, oh, maybe I should get a pay-per-view, see how it is. And I was actually watching it at a friend's house, and and it was nice, and it was awesome, and I found out eventually that it was coming to my country the next year. So I thought, no, this is cool. Now, obviously, I didn't go, but my brother went, and he said it was okay. And I knew a couple friends who went, and they said it was cool. Um, but I got it on. I taped it, so it's quite possibly one of the greatest, best WrestleManias in my opinion. Some might argue, some might not. So, WrestleMania 18 started off with William Regal versus Rob Van Dam for the Intercontinental title. What was interesting to me was the year before, William Regal took on Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho was the Intercontinental Champion. And now it's William Regal who's the Intercontinental Champion this this year. And so he was the WWF Intercontinental title champion, and he lost to Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam being uh, a newly WWF contracted wrestler um, prior to ECW, and he became the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion for the first time. We then have Christian, who is the European champion, take on Diamond Dallas Page. Of course, Christian, keeping to the heel aspect, decided that he was no longer from Toronto and he resides in Florida, in Tampa, which I think most of the Canadian wrestlers nowadays live. It's either that or Atlanta. But so, anyways, Diamond Dallas Page wins, leaving Christian to have one of his temper tantrums. And then we have the Hardcore Championship match: Goldust versus Maven, and of course, Spike Dudley comes in and he wins. And then, of course, throughout it was, Al Snow tried to get it, he didn't get it. Uh, Crash Holly, I believe, chased him and then fought him to the backstage. And Al Snow tried to get him, and then Hurricane came. And he pinned Spike to become hardcore champion. Then Molly Holly, then Christian, then finally Maven. So that was an interesting match. Then it was the fatal 4-way tag team championship match for the WWF tag team titles. The Hardy Boys, the APA, the Dudley Boys, and Billy and Chuck. And Billy and Chuck retained the belts, which kind of pissed me off because I thought, maybe the Dudley Boys, because they didn't win the titles last year. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because they didn't win the titles that last year before, that they could have won the tag championships. But obviously that didn't happen. Then we had the Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall. This is probably one of... it's interesting because this is something that Randy Savage could have been a part of, the whole NWO invasion, when Vince McMahon was like, I'm going to inject the WWF with a lethal dose of poison. And then... So Hulk Hogan was going to take on The Rock that night, and then Scott Hall. I was a little irritated that they didn't have Kevin Nash do anything, except, be at the side of Scott Hall. The match could have been better, it really could have been. It was almost like it was a handicap match. But Stone Cold won, and because I'm was a huge Stone Cold fan, and, so that was awesome, especially after when he had some Molson Canadian beer, so that was cool. Then you had the Divas match, Jazz, Trish Stratus, and I think Lita. I'm not gonna check that. Jazz ends up winning. And then you had so then you had The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, the match of the night, if you don't include the Jericho Triple H match. This was supposed to be the shit, because you had Hulk Hogan, the past, versus The Rock, who was the present, the guy that tore the house down, if you will. So The Rock and Hogan are in the ring. You have half of the audience shouting for Hogan. You had half the audience chanting for The Rock. And it was a pretty decent match. You had The Rock pin Hogan, and Hogan shaking his hand and becoming face, which led to Nash and Hall coming in the ring and starting a fight, which led to The Rock coming back and whipping ass. And then Hogan raising The Rock's hand in victory, and I think The Rock shed a tear because he was living his dream of facing Hogan that night. So then, the main event happened. This Triple H versus Chris Jericho, Y2J, for the WWF Undisputed title. And of course, we all know that Triple H won, which I think is pretty standard for WrestleMania. I think only 3 times out of the heel won the WWE Championship or WWF Championship, whatever, at a WrestleMania. So, and that includes Steve Austin, who turned heel the year before at WrestleMania 17 in Houston, Texas. So that was it. All in all, it's a great WrestleMania. You know, I saw the dark matches. I saw the dark matches as well. You know, so it was pretty cool. You know, Mr. Perfect was in a dark match, and I can't remember who he was facing, but I think after that, Brock Lesnar came into the WWF. Vince McMahon decided to change the name from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment. So that was the first time that World Wrestling Entertainment came, and the WWF decided to get the F out, which was the slogan at the time. Whether it's a good call or not, I don't know, because the World Wrestling Federation has always been, you know, what stood out, I think. You know, you had the Red Sox, you had the New York Jets, you had NBA basketball, Raptors, you know, whatever. You know, Maple Leafs and the Blue Jays and hockey, and the WWF. Well, then when the World Wildlife Fund decided, hey, you know what? We don't like the fact that you're copywriting us, which I thought was complete horseshit. Vince was like, all right, well, WWE then. WWE, I'm more for entertainment than I am for wrestling. Which is half true and half, I don't know. I think that the WWE, through the years, right after WrestleMania 18, got really a hit and a miss. You know, I think that's exactly what is going on right now. Is, you know, and you know, sometimes it is hard to watch, but other times it's like, well, you know, I still enjoy it. I'm still a fan, and I'm glad to see other people that are my age or older still have faith in the company, even though there's a lot of bad things that can happen. But yeah, that's basically it. Alright, talk to you later.